Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for assembling on such short notice. As you know, there's been a lot of rapid developments in Syria, so I wanted to keep you briefed and updated. Colleagues, I'm happy to announce that a few minutes ago, there has been a common understanding that has been reached between the Syrian government and the Syrian Democratic Forces on a number of issues related to the future of the Hasakah governorate. From our side, the Syrian government has agreed to the following. We will grant the Syrian Democratic Forces a 4-day period for consultations, internal consultations, to develop a detailed plan for the practical mechanisms for integrating the area. In the event of the agreement on that plan, the Syrian forces will not enter the centers of Hasakah and Qamishli cities and will remain on their outskirts until the detailed plan is finalized and a time frame has been put for the full integration of those areas. When it comes to certain Kurdish majority towns in those areas, as you know, there are many Kurdish majority towns in other parts of Syria, the Syrian military forces will not enter those areas, and we will only use local security forces from that particular region in order to ensure peace and security in accordance with the agreement. When it comes to General Mazloum Abdi, he will nominate a candidate from the Syrian Democratic Forces for the position of Deputy Minister of Defense, in addition to proposing a candidate to become the governor of Hasakah, and names for representation of this area into the People's Assembly. He will also be proposing names in relation to individuals to be part of different state institutions. Fifth, we will integrate all SDF military and security forces into the Ministries of Defense and the Ministry of Interior, with discussions continuing on the detailed integration mechanism when it comes to those forces. The civil institutions will also be integrated into the structure of the Syrian government. Sixth, the decree number 13, which was issued a couple weeks ago, independent of those negotiations, as you know, the decree concerning the linguistical, cultural, and citizenship rights of Syrian Kurds will be implemented rapidly, reflecting a shared commitment to building a unified and strong Syria, based on the premise of national partnership and guaranteeing rights of all Syrian society. The implementation of this understanding will begin at 8 p.m. tonight, Damascus time. Colleagues, I would like to further clarify the following. Since the liberation in late 2024 from the Assad regime, the Syrian government was very keen to preserve the unity and stability of the country following years of dictatorship and the civil war. We have made every effort possible and engaged in numerous occasions with all components of Syrian society, and were always open to their engagement with one another, building the pillars for a unified and prosperous Syria. We actively sought economic stability and security. We focused on what joins us and brings us together as Syrians rather than the differences, while fully acknowledging the strength, not the weakness, of the Syrian mosaic, and recognizing that it is a factor of power, not division. We worked with all communities from all sects and backgrounds, including Muslims, Christians, and Jews. And as we just ended the celebration period, I'm sure you've all seen the festive period during the Christmas season in Syria, and have also taken note that for the very first time, Syrian Jews are returning to their synagogue after years of being outside of the country due to the former Assad regime. Part of that integration was reaching out to the SDF very early on since the liberation. On March 10th, General Mazloum was welcomed by President Shara, and a historic deal was signed, the first of its kind, having a Kurdish leader, a Syrian Kurdish leader, in Damascus. Everyone was optimistic. But since the signing of the 10th March agreement with the Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF procrastinated, unfortunately, in its implementation. The implementation of that agreement and the procrastination thereof was witnessed by the international community, particularly the United States, given that it took a year without us moving forward. We unfortunately noticed that they were evading obligations and trying to buy time. During that year, we also saw the unfortunate fragility in the SDF command chain and their ability to implement decisions. It was clear that what we would agree in Damascus would not be easily implemented by subordinates in different parts of Syria. This is when the bombing in Aleppo did not stop by the areas that were controlled by the SDF PKK forces, and we're sure that all of you have seen the drone strike onto the Aleppo governorate building. The Syrian government had to address in Aleppo those threats in order to protect the citizens' welfare and their security. During that time, and I was in Syria during that operation, a military operation has been carried out to enforce law in Sheikh Maqsoud and Al-Shafiyya neighborhoods, from where the SDF and PKK remnants were targeting civilians. The operation was surgical. I'm sure you all noticed the humanitarian corridors, the evacuation plans, the Ministry of Defense publicly sharing military targets, giving enough time for civilians to escape those areas. I'm sure you've also noticed that as a result of that, and as the result of working with humanitarian organizations, the United Nations organizations, the vast majority of people who had to leave Sheikh Maqsoud and Ashrafiyya went to other government-controlled areas rather than going to SDF-controlled areas. We did not, throughout this period, spare any effort to reach a diplomatic solution, but the prolonged procrastination and the lack of willing to implement drove the local population in Deir ez-Zor, the local population in Raqqa, people who were oppressed by the SDF, to revolt against them. This is when we had to intervene. Colleagues, the Syrian Kurds have suffered for decades under the former regime. This is a fact. Since the liberation, we have done everything that we can to acknowledge that suffering. They participated in the uprising against the Assad regime. They participated in the liberation of Syria. And Decree number 13 granted historic rights to Syrian Kurds, which was unprecedented and unimaginable during the Assad times. What was also unimaginable is to have Kurdish young men and women join our security forces, and I'm proud that last week the first cohort of Kurdish individuals graduated from the security services in Afrin. It is absolutely key to distinguish between a political military faction in which some elements have transnational links and transnational ambitions, and the rights of the Syrian Kurds. We were taken aback by the way that the SDF dealt with the anti-ISIS operation. The fact that they used it as a negotiation and leverage card against their very allies, threatening to leave prisons, threatening to leave camps where ISIS prisoners are detained, put us, Syria, a member of the international coalition against ISIS, and our international partners in a troublesome situation where we had to work together to get it under control. It is not right for the SDF to use a very dangerous national security, regional security, and international security card against their partners from the international coalition. We, the Syrian government, take this threat very seriously when it comes to the Aishan detention facilities and the camps. We have regained control over the majority of those camps and the majority of those prisons, and will continue to work with the United States and our allies to ensure to fight terrorism in the most effective way. We hope that this new implementation, this new deal will be implemented smoothly, and for us to be able to focus on the future that we all want to build for all Syrians, regardless of their ethnicity and religion. I'm happy to take any questions. Please.
Because of your offensive on SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces, many ISIS members have reportedly escaped. How would you solve this one? And secondly, residents in Kobani have reported that their water and electricity supplies have been cut off for more than a week. Why is that? And they accuse the government of being behind this. And lastly, human rights organizations, including the Syrian Network for Human Rights, an independent body, says it has verified video footage showing uniformed Syrian army members abusing and desecrating the body of SDF female soldiers, female fighters. What's your reaction?
So when it comes to the ISIS prisoners, these, as everyone knows, were under control of the SDF party. So that question should be put to the SDF, why they abandoned their positions, opened the gates, and ensured that ISIS members were let go. This was part of the rhetoric that they've always threatened to use. So I think that question should be put to them. We've been working with our allies to regain control of what has happened. When it comes to water and electricity, this is something that we have not done, and we will look into it to ensure the continuation of all services. Raqqa, a city that was taken by the SDF, had electricity for the first time for 24 hours, given that the governor is now there. When it comes to alleged violations, as you have noted, the Syrian government has taken full responsibility in the past and whenever anything got wrong, and worked with the United Nations, unprecedentedly giving the UN access to document any such abuses and held public trials for anything that went wrong. But the fact that an operation involving 150,000 civilians in a very populated area where SDF was using civilian infrastructure, and I was there, I went into tunnels that the SDF built under hospitals. The fact that an operation that complex resulted in one violation involving a corpse, something that we'll also investigate, shows the level of discipline and the level of surgical stuff that we have done. And the fact that the Kurdish people returned to Sheikh Maqsoud and Ashrafiyya shows that they do not fear the government, but are very happy with how the operation was conducted. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Abdelhamid Siam from the Arabic Daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. We trust that the Syrian people will finally come together, being Kurds, Alawite, Druze, whatever. But the real threat is not coming from those. The long-term threat is coming from the occupying power of Israel. How do you deal with that? What are the issues that you are talking with the Israeli partner through mediators in Paris? Do you trust the Israelis that they will allow Syria to become united? Thank you.
Look, we've been engaging constructively since day one. Since day one of the liberation, we've said we will abide by the 1974 agreement, which is consolidated in the Security Council behind me. Israel has been breaching that agreement nonstop, and we have been calling it out. During my week in Syria last week, I also visited the area of separation, and I've seen the incursions that Israel has done in breach of that agreement. I've also spoke to residents, families, mothers, fathers who have people kidnapped by Israel and land incursions. What the praise the Syrian government has received is the restraint that we have shown on this and the constructive engagement that we have with the United States. We will continue to work with the United States and partners to end the encouragements that have happened and return to the prior December 7th line.
Ambassador,
Please.
Ambassador.
What will happen if the 4 days negotiation time finished and there's no resolution?
Well, we have been working for a year now constructively and trying every option. This is the third or fourth proposal that we have put forward. For us, we don't want to address hypotheticals. We would hope that this agreement holds. We're working with our partners at the United States to make sure that it holds. For us, we would love to see SDF individual members integrated, their strength and their experience be part of the Syrian state, and to be able to focus on a prosperous Syria for all.
Ambassador,
Please.
there are reports that ISIS veterans with great experience managed to get out of the jails. What are you going to do about that? I mean, is there any way to find them, to arrest them, can you handle the situation?
Well, again, it's a shame that the SDF resulted to a blackmail target, a blackmail method, and dealt with those prisons in the way that they have, that led to the escape of these individuals. We are working with the international coalition as a member. As you know, Syria is a member to be able to deal with this. We have a lot of experience fighting ISIS just in the last year. We have managed to target a lot of their leadership in Damascus, a lot of arrests, a lot of detention, a lot of intelligence sharing. So we trust that we have the skills and the patience and the expertise to be able to deal with it. But the unfortunate situation is that SDF unfortunately put us in that and put their international partners in this circumstance to start with, something that we're working to address. She had a question.
No, he asked my question.
Okay.
Mr.
Please.
Ambassador.
Michelle Nichols from Reuters. Given the events of the past few days, how would you describe the current relationship between the Syrian government and the US government, and what conversations have you been having?
I think the latest tweet by Ambassador Tom Baraka just a few moments ago really encapsulated. The U.S. has been a valued partner since day one in engagement with the SDF. They've been part of all our talks and all our proposals. They have seen that we deliver on our promises. They have seen how long it takes the SDF to be able to make a decision. They have seen the steps that we've taken to enshrine Kurdish rights independent of the talks. As you know, the decree number 13 did not come as a result of negotiations, but as a result of firm belief. We also work with the United States on so many different other issues of kind of mutual and joint interest.
Ambassador Farna Shamiri with AP. Has President Trump or any U.S. official approached you or any other Syrian official, including President al-Shara, to join the Board of Peace in recent days?
At the moment, I don't have any information as to that. Sorry.
Mr. Ambassador, Islam Doruk from Anadolu Agency. Was there any other international or regional parties for this latest agreement, especially Turkey played any role in it?
I mean, for us, the issue of the SDF and the issue of ISIS, of course, has regional implications. But for us, we're very keen that these should be Syrian talks and that Syria should take the lead. This is a kind of Syrian matter. Of course, with a lot of the regional partners and allies, we've been working with them in a way that, preserves Syria's sovereignty, deals with the Syrian sensitivities that are different from any kind of regional country. But a lot of countries have been backing us and giving us the support that we need, the political support, for us to be able to reach those agreements. Last question.
Yes, we see some footages shows that.
Could you just introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Sinan from Spot Press Cooperative. The question is, we see some footages shows that some HTS forces are carrying the ISIS emblems on their outfit, and on the other hand, some footages show that they're cutting people's civilians' hats, and that's proved by some footages. What's your reaction to that?
We have seen a lot of disinformation that has been circulating around. Everything that we will see, we will definitely look into specifically to be able to see. But we've seen, for example, during the Battle of Aleppo and for Sheikh Maqsoud, that there was so much disinformation going around that this is a massacre against the Kurds when the Kurds were actually moving into government-held areas. So in light of so much disinformation that is happening that actually harms the Kurdish rights and the genuine kind of Kurdish demands that exist, we have to be very careful before reaching any conclusions. In cases where certain things went wrong in the past, we have let the UN in, we've investigated, we've held trials. If anything to that effect happens again, we have shown that we will take responsibility for those actions. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you.
شكرا جزيلا.